Good morning everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to Cosford 2019. My name is Calum Martin and I am from FSElite, the leading news website. And today I'm here to talk to you about flight simulation and why you should get involved and how you can also get involved if this is your first time at a show. So just a little bit about me. So I've been simming since Flight Sim 2000, so 19 years ago. I know I don't look it, but I have been using it since I was a small wee child. I've been working in aviation as well myself, in the real world for the last 5 years, before then going full-time with my current role at FSElite. And I co-founded FSElite in 2016. So, during this presentation today, all of the images you will see will be from the simulators that you can try and fly today. Except for this one, which I better just quickly change. There we are, nice and fixed. So, just a very quick overview of what today's agenda will look like. So firstly, it's going to be about why you should use flight simulation, followed by how you can first also get involved, all in 30 minutes. At the end, I'll have a few questions as well if there's time. If not, then I'll be at the back of the room if anyone wants to come talk to me afterwards. So today is a bit of a roller coaster in terms of information. There's a lot to take in, but I will take you through it gradually, and hopefully by the end of today's presentation, you might have an inkling to go and try some of the fantastic booths just across the road. So, why flight simulation? So, just a very quick story about how I got involved into flight simulation. So, when I was a young kid, actually, this Piper Cherokee was actually the first aircraft I ever laid a hand on. And I loved the experience. I enjoyed the thrill of flying, going through the sky, that feel of the engine powering up. However, the instructor I had in the cockpit with me didn't necessarily agree with the school education that I was taking. Turns out I didn't actually need any qualifications because in the UK, getting into flying is quite easy as long as you have the right kind of aptitude and math ability. But he kind of put me off from actually taking it to be an actual career. So I turned to flight simulation to really kind of get stuck in and still experience that feeling and sensation of flight as well. So simulation isn't just about flying an aircraft. It's very much also about making friends, joining communities. It's about learning procedures as well as practicing tough scenarios that you may not be able to do in the real world. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to try something new that you may not ever be able to experience in the real life as well, because simulation is getting more and more advanced as the years go on. So, some of you may be thinking, well, I'm at a flight school, so how can this help me? Well, actually, simulation is a fantastic tool to really help you get involved into the training when you're not at home. Like I said earlier, the simulations these days and the aircraft modeled are extremely detailed and high-tech already. So you can practice your instruments, your flows, and your checklists relatively easily and also much more cost-effective in a simulator. What if you're a pilot? Well, this is great for keeping familiarized with aircraft. I know a few pilots from working in the aviation industry who actually use some of the tools that we can use today as just regular consumers, just to test their flows and also to make sure they're prepared for when they go into the multi-million-pound simulators as part of their airline training. And you can just be keen to get involved. With flight simulation, it's not just about aircraft and flying. There are so many different aspects to it, from flight planning, dispatching, loading. There's a whole range of things you can get involved, as well as things like air traffic control through VATSIM, IVAO, and other services as well. So flight simulation has a range of reasons to get involved, but ultimately, it's about having fun. Flight simulation is a great way for me because I've met so many friends and now future colleagues through the world of flight simulation, and I think that's a very good reason to get involved. So what about those important first steps? So the good news is, you guys have done the first one already, and that's an attend a flight sim event like Flight Sim Show 2019. The second one you've also done, come into a seminar all about how you can get involved in flight simulation as well. So, there are other ways as well. There are online communities, and at the end of this presentation I've got a few examples of which I recommend you should go check out, as well as joining Facebook groups if you're on that social media platform. But ultimately, take the jump and buy a simulator. After this presentation, across the road, there are X-Plane, There is Infinite Flight, there is Dead Stick Flight Sim, and of course there's Prepared, and a few other sims as well that you can all try today. So through this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about PC hardware, the simulator, aircraft, airports, utilities, and flight controls. However, flight simulation doesn't stop there. There's also things about flight planning, regions, texture replacement, AI traffic tools, virtual airline shaders, PBR, performance tools, camera systems, and online flying. It's pretty overwhelming. There is a lot involved. However, today, I'm just going to talk about those key things. Again, this is very high overview for you guys. There's a lot more detail that you can find out by speaking to the various publishers and developers across the way. So the first thing I want to recommend is a PC. So here in the UK, we're very fortunate to have a company called Chillblast, who are exhibitors here today, and they produce flight simulation computers that are incredibly powerful, but also tuned to make sure that they run your sims really nice. So they are also the most awarded PC manufacturer here in the UK, and they do have a full range of PCs available. So one of my favorite ones is the Chillblast Gulfstream Advanced PC, which is sort of a mid-range spec, which you can kind of expect good performance, good visuals, and also good flight dynamics as well. And here's just an example of the installed hardware as well. Now, flight simulation isn't a cheap hobby, I'm not going to lie to you. This type of system will set you back just shy of £1,800. However, the way I like to view it is an investment. And in particular, if again you're at a flying school or you're training to become a pilot, then this type of thing may be worthwhile investment to help reduce the cost you would spend on other schools. But if that's a little bit too more expensive, you can always head down the budget route if it's something you're still trying to get involved in, or if you really want to, you can go for as real as it gets, and that's where things get really pricey. But the choice is yours. But hopefully, this kind of very vague chart will give you a sort of sense of kind of the expectation you should be looking at, depending on what kind of sim you would like to fly at home. So feel free to take a picture of that if you so wish. So when it comes to sims, there are two primary desktop flight simulators at the moment. And those are Prepared version 4 and X-Plane 11. Both simulators have pros and cons. Both simulators have add-ons that are not in one another, but they both provide a rich and indulging flight simulation experience. So let me just take you through some of the pros for each of those systems, starting with Prepared. And all of these screenshots are taken from the simulator themselves. So if you do use Prepared, it's a very familiar platform for those that have used things like FSX or even FS2004 in the past. It's a very similar installation process, very simple setup of controls, and it just has that familiarization if you're used to previous Microsoft ESP platforms. It's also got vast support from third-party developers, as well as a huge variety of add-ons. So if you go across the pool, you'll see most people have add-ons for Prepared. Because it has been around for a little bit longer and it has such an outstanding history, there is a vast amount more available for it. Also, you get things like seasonal textures, built-in scenarios, and also better weather handling as a whole. Moving on to X-Plane. So X-Plane has a real advantage in that it has excellent in-sim rendering engines by default. So this is a default picture you see right here with all of the imagery on the ground. You get crisp, clear, and colourful textures right out of the box. It also uses something called blade element theory, simulation, to read the aircraft shape and alters flight dynamics based on a huge number of variables. So each kind of pole, the wheels, the wings, everything kind of gets impacted by the airflow as it hits the aircraft, making for a very realistic simulation. The amount of huge freeware quality is also insane. There is plenty. This airport here is Los Angeles in America, and what you see here is completely free of charge. So you just download it, drop it into your installation, and there's your airport, complete with all of these smaller details like the airport people and also the ground equipment as well. So I just want to show you a very quick comparison video of stock versus stock. So when you first buy X-Plane, this is exactly as it will look in your sim when kind of running at night time. I believe this is New York. This was taken by my friend, and this is the same and prepared. So the difference is quite staggering. However, you can buy and install add-ons to make prepared look visually just as good in your simulator as well. So you can see the difference in the night lighting in particular, especially the way the sun sets and the ground textures. However, Prepare still does have plenty of advantages as well. So, in terms of comparison for price, setup and add-ons, Prepared comes with 2 different licenses. And this is always a confusing question, and I see plenty of times in forums. So, both licenses enable you to have the same simulator experience. The reason there are 2 different licenses is one is all about the usage. They're both about the usage. So one is more about the students. So if you're a student pilot, then you can opt for the $60 one. Or if you're using it for other purposes, then it's the $200 license. All of that information is online, and there are plenty of forums in which you can look at to help you decide which license is for you. But ultimately, whichever one you do have, you will have the same core experience. X-Plane is a lot easier. It's a simple $60 purchase. It's a general license for your everyday use. If you are looking for commercial licenses, then they will be available as well. But I just don't have the price for that because you have to contact Landmark yourselves. In terms of setup, so it's easy to install for Prepared, runs as default, but it does require a lot of add-ons to look great, as I demonstrated in that video. And for X-Plane, you can download and install it from Steam. So if that's a platform you do use, it's super easy. You just click the button and it installs, and it keeps it updated as well for you as soon as you load up that platform. But where Prepared really does kind of win is when it comes to add-ons. There's a lot more variation in airports. There's a lot of more regions, aircraft, with a lot more realism and feature sets to choose from. Plus, with X-Plane, there is still a great range of freeware, and there's an increasing number of quality payware, and from big names as well. So if you go over to the Orbex booth, for example, they've really started to take Orbex to the next level with their True Earth scenery. So when it comes to add-ons are really important because they are what make up the heart of our simulation platforms. You can buy the default one today. However, you're still going to have to buy a whole bunch of stuff as well to kind of really make sure your sim runs and looks as good as you want it to. So we're very lucky in that we have a very dedicated and passionate community who did all the hard work really for me, because we asked them as a website, what add-ons do you think people who have never used a flight sim should buy? So we started off with aircraft. One of the biggest votes was for A2A's Cessna or Comanche aircraft. Now these are fantastic renditions of their respective aircraft. They run really well, they have fantastic sound effects, the physics are great, and they are highly recommended by the community. Another great one, if you're into the more bigger aircraft, is FSLabs' A320, which is actually on display over in the booth over the road. It's a fantastic looking aircraft, it runs nicely, it has plenty of systems for you to really get into the details as well. And another fan favourite was the TFDI Design 717. It's a bit more of a classic airline, but still really used in airlines today. And of course, this one was the bigger winner, was the PMDG 737 MGX. Very popular aircraft in the world, lots of great functionality, and definitely one the community wanted to vote for a lot. Now as for X-Plane, if you're into 737s, then there is nothing more recommended than the Zevo mod. This is freeware. This is a 737 you can download and install in your sim and have a really good experience. There's a YouTuber out there I recommend called Flight Deck to Sim. If you've never heard of him, give him a search. He's a real-world pilot, and he recommends this aircraft above all else to get involved in that type of flying. You've got the JR Design A330. So if you're into the long haul on X-Plane, this is an aircraft you should check out. And if you want something smaller, then the Hotstart TBM 900 is definitely one of the highest quality add-ons you can get for X-Plane. along with Just Flight's Cessna 152 if you're after something a little bit smaller and also a little bit slower. So moving on from aircraft, scenery was the next question we asked our fantastic community, and for prepared, the immediate answer was Orbex's global region. This covers the entire Earth in brand new textures and also autogen to give you a much more realistic experience. Another fan favourite was Tsuki Design's Seattle City, which recreates the entire city in glorious HD aesthetics. It looks fantastic and is a real kind of eye visual piece for you to enjoy. Another popular airport is Flightbeam's San Francisco, again in America, but the level of detail and performance is what kind of made the community vote for this. And one of the more challenging airports in the world is Innsbruck in the Swiss Alps. This airport has been developed by a few people, but the community say that Orbex's one is probably one of the best. For Explain, one of the highest recommended ones was Tourist Great Britain South, and this is clearly London with the London Eye over there, the Millennium Dome, and also you can see London City Airport in the top as well. That was highly sought after by the community, and if you're into flying into kind of tough islands as well, then Flytampers Corfu is definitely one I would recommend you get. So in terms of freeware for Explain, Mr. X's Portland is completely free and available for you today to download straight into your sim. And if you're again after something to do with island flying, then Airworthy Designs, St. Martin is another great airport as well. And finally, moving on to utilities. So if there is one add-on I would recommend within Prepared, it is Chaseplane. Chaseplane is a great tool for your camera system. It enables you to move around the cockpit with relative ease, and you can configure a whole range of different options, and it's all community-based. And one of the most important add-ons you can get to make your sim look aesthetically pleasing as possible is something called Tomato Shade. This is completely free, and it will change the look of your sim completely. It can be a bit of a challenge to install. However, there's a lot of community support out there who will be able to assist you with that. An add-on that is available for both Prepared and Explain is Hi-Fly's Active Sky, and this will give you realistic weather throughout your entire globe. It has historical data, it has hurricane support, so you can go and try and fly in those challenging conditions to your heart's content. Something else that's available for both is Navigraph charts and FMS data. This is fantastic. It enables you to keep your data in your sim up to date, and also gives you the ability to view charts for most airports all around the world. And as for Explain, the equivalent of Tomato Shade would be something called Reshade, similar name, but again it will change the visual appearance of your entire simulator as well. And definitely one of the highest rated ones is something called Better Pushback, which will give you the ability to push back from a gate at any airport in the world of Explain and line you up perfectly ready to go. And finally, the last add-on recommended in Explain is called Scenery Animation Manager, also known as SAM, and it will give you the jetways as well as a range of other airport-based objects as well. So I know that's a lot to take in. That is all software that has been recommended by the community for anyone who's trying to get involved in flight simulation. Some of it's free, some of it is paid, but all of it will give you an enhanced experience in your flight simulation. So now we move on to the final element, and that's all about flight controls. Without a doubt, I recommend you at least get a joystick. Flying keyboard and mouse was something I did when I first started, and it did not work at all. So this is a must-have. However, if you are kind of into more advanced stuff and you want to try out some of the cool stuff today, then here are some of the other recommendations I have from 3 reputable companies that I would happily recommend today. So that's Thrustmaster, Honeycomb, and Virtualfly. And Honeycomb and Virtualfly are actually here today, so be free to go check them out as well. They're all reputable. Some of them are newer than others, but they're all kind of affordable, and some even come with lifetime guarantees. They're that passionate about their products as well. So in terms of their actual products, the TBR pedal set from Thrustmaster is a great way to have rudder pedals at the base of your feet, and we gave it a relatively high score. The Honeycomb Alpha flight controls, one of the best yokes I've ever used in all of my years of flight simulation. Couldn't recommend you try that out for yourselves later today. And also the Virtual Fly TQ6 thrust levers as well. They're a fantastic addition to anyone looking to kind of take their cockpit experience to the next level. If you want to try any of this stuff out, then feel free to come to the FSElite booth. We've got it all set up and ready to go. And you can also try your hand at some of the other products and sceneries we've spoken about today. And also, we're running a contest where you can win the Thrustmaster pedal, not the Thrustmaster, I'm sorry, the TQ6 throttle set, and also the Honeycomb yoke as well. So you're probably thinking, well, which sim is right for me? So, as I said earlier, they both have pros and cons. For me personally, I use them for very different reasons. Prepared, I use mostly for my long haul flying, the ones that I do from like here to Spain or here to America, vice versa. Mostly because of the vast amount of airports available, and also the fact I have better connections to online communities through Prepared as well. X-Plane, on the other hand, I use mostly for GA flying because of the crisp ground textures, and VR is also an excellent addition to X-Plane. So if you're into VR flying, then X-Plane is definitely the one for you. So upon reflection, simulation is a great tool for many people. It's not just about having fun, it's about familiarization, learning new skills, and so forth. The choice of sim can really depend on what you want from it. People will tell you one is better than the other, but my honest belief is that they are both equal and that they have pros and cons to both of them, and they are both equally as exciting. Add-ons in your stock sim will also give you the power to make it your own, but be sure to check out communities for inspiration on which ones to help you as well. So what about getting involved? So there's a range of different communities. I couldn't recommend more for you to go and check out today. So you've got forum communities such as the Sky Lounge. We've got YouTubers. Some of my friends and partners, the Flight Sim Deck, Oz Flight Simmer, make great tutorial videos for you to check out. Xplane.org, if you're looking into Xplane, that's a great resource of information. Streamers, they stream all the time. They talk to you whilst they fly their aircraft, so you can ask them questions. It's a great way to learn new skills and techniques. If you're looking for helicopters, then HeliSimmer is the place to go. Couldn't recommend those guys enough. And finally, if you just want to listen to some music during your time in the air, then Jetstream Radio are definitely the guys to go to. And I couldn't recommend communities without obviously talking about FSElite. So we are the ultimate resource for any flight sim content. We engage with the community in a variety of ways, whether that's through coming to events, asking questions through social media, and just generally interacting with you all. We have daily content for all sims, hardware and more that we've spoken about today. And we have over 25 members of my amazing team helping me run the site on a daily basis. And we're always looking for people to join. So if anyone's interested, then please just come see us at the end of today. So in your goodie bags, you should have received a wonderful 80-page magazine, which we're super proud of, that has a lot of information in from this weekend and beyond. So there's exclusive content in there, developer interviews, and it's very community-driven. So make sure you get it in your goodie bag. If you didn't get one, then be sure to stop by our stand, with future stuff coming soon. So a couple of quick mentions for other sims, because there's more than two. Infinite Flight, definitely one you should go check out if you've got a mobile device. What you see here, you can get on an iPad or an iPhone or Android device. It's very community driven, lots of features, definitely worth going to see. And if you want to do a bit of combat flight sim, then DCS is definitely the place to go. There's some really cool looking aircraft, there's a lot of fun, high adrenaline, definitely something I enjoy doing. So I've got a minute for questions. I don't talk too much, but I will be at the end of the this auditorium if you want to come and ask me anything in the meantime. Yes, sir.
Any thoughts on Flight Simulator 2020?
I wrote 8,000 words of those. So, I was very fortunate. I went to Seattle last week to try it. There's a lot of good stuff to come out of it. It looks fantastic. The data resources they were using were definitely very high quality. I was flying over my hometown of Bristol, saw my house, flew over New York where buildings were 3D, huge skyscrapers. There's still questions over things like third parties, which Microsoft weren't very forthcoming about. But in general, I think it's something we need to definitely keep an eye on, and this is definitely not going to be Microsoft Flight, the arcade stuff. This, I think, will be a simulator based on kind of what we're using today. Yes, sir.
I think you forgot to mention, Paul's point to the Pepper, is they do offer mini back guarantee, which I took advantage of. They can try for a limited period. If you're not happy with the sim,
Yeah.
they'll reimburse you.
Thank you very much. So just to repeat that for anyone who didn't hear, these sims do offer like a money-back guarantee. So if you try it out and it doesn't quite work, then you can request refunds quite easily. Thank you very much. So that's all the time I have, I'm afraid. If you do have any questions, I'll be at the back. Please do come and see me, or come and see any of my colleagues at the stand. But before I go,